The alarm bells rang across Earth's orbital station with a sound that made everyone's blood run cold. Commander Sarah Chen rushed to the main control room, her coffee spilling as she moved. The night shift workers were all staring at their screens, with wide eyes. "What's happening?" Sarah asked as she reached the main console. "Ma'am, you need to see this," said Officer Rodriguez, his voice shaking. "We have a ship coming into the solar system, but this isn't just any ship." Sarah looked at the screen. The image showed a massive vessel, sleek and white, moving slowly toward Earth. She knew that shape. Everyone in the space program knew that shape. "That's impossible," she whispered. The ship on the screen was the UES Prometheus, the same ship that had left Earth 47 years ago with 3,000 people on board. The same ship that had vanished without a trace near the Veil Nebula. The same ship that Sarah's own father had served on as a young engineer. "Run the scan again," Sarah ordered. "Check the identification codes." The scanner beeped and showed the results. Ship registration, UES Prometheus. Launch date, 2177. Last known position, Veil Nebula System. Status, missing, presumed lost. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said quietly, "the ship looks exactly like it did when it left. No damage, no changes. It's like it just left yesterday." Sarah felt her hands shaking. She had grown up hearing stories about the Prometheus. It was humanity's first real deep space exploration ship, the pride of Earth. When it disappeared, the whole planet mourned. Her father never talked about losing his friends on that ship. "Try to contact them," Sarah ordered. The communication officer pressed buttons on her console. "UES Prometheus, this is Earth Orbital Command. Please respond." For a moment, there was only static. Then a voice came through the speakers, a voice that sounded tired but alive. "Earth Command, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the UES Prometheus. Good to hear from you. We're requesting permission to return to Earth orbit." The control room went completely silent. Captain Vasquez had been 45 years old when the ship left. If she was still alive, she would be 92 now. But her voice sounded exactly the same as it did in the old recordings. "Captain Vasquez," Sarah said, taking the microphone with trembling hands, "this is Commander Chen. Sir, you've been gone for 47 years. There was a pause. Then Captain Vasquez laughed. 47 years? Commander, we've only been gone for 6 months. We found something out there. Something amazing. We need to talk." Sarah looked around the control room. Everyone was staring at her, waiting for orders. She had trained for many things, but not for this. "Captain, please hold your position. We're sending a team to meet you." "Understood, Commander. But you should know, we're not alone out here anymore. The galaxy is much bigger than we thought." Before Sarah could ask what that meant, new alarms started ringing. Different alarms. The ones. That meant non-human ships were approaching. "Commander," shouted the sensor officer, "we have multiple contacts coming into the system. Unknown ship types. They're big." The main screen split into sections. Along with the Prometheus, 12 massive ships were moving toward Earth. These ships looked like nothing humans had ever built. Some were shaped like crystals, others like flowing metal. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Those are Galactic Council ships," Sarah said, recognizing them from the diplomatic files. The Council was the group of alien races that humanity had joined 30 years ago. They were friendly, but they made it very clear that humans were the youngest and least advanced members. "Ma'am, the lead Council ship is trying to contact us," the communication officer reported. "Put them through." A new voice filled the control room. It was deep and had a strange echo, like someone talking through water. "Earth Command. This is Admiral Kethmore of the Galactic Council Fleet. We detected an unusual energy signature in your system. We are here to investigate." Sarah knew she was in over her head. The Prometheus was back after 47 years, looking exactly the same. The Galactic Council was here with a war fleet, and nobody knew what was really happening. "Admiral. Kethmore, this is Commander Chen. We have a situation here." One of our lost ships has returned. We are aware of the human vessel, Admiral Kethmore replied. Our sensors cannot penetrate its hull. Its energy patterns do not match any known technology in the galaxy. This is concerning. Sarah felt a chill. The Galactic Council had technology that was hundreds of years ahead of Earth's best science. If they couldn't scan the Prometheus, what did that mean? Captain Vasquez, Sarah called on the other channel. We have Galactic Council ships here. They want to talk. I know, Captain Vasquez replied calmly. We can see them. Don't worry, Commander. We can handle this. Captain, what happened to you out there? What did you find? There was a long pause. When Captain Vasquez spoke again, her voice was different. Older somehow, but not in years. Older in experience. We found the truth, Commander, about the universe, about what's really out there, and we learned things that changed us. We're still human, but we're not the same humans who left. On the sensor display, Sarah watched as the Council ships spread out around the Prometheus. They were taking defensive positions, like they expected. Trouble. Admiral Kethmore, Sarah called. Please don't do anything hostile. This is still a human ship with human crew. Commander Chen, that vessel poses an unknown threat to galactic security. Its technology signature suggests capabilities beyond our understanding. We cannot allow such unknowns to exist without investigation. Sarah felt trapped between two forces she didn't understand. The Prometheus, which looked like home but clearly wasn't the same ship that left, and the Galactic Council, which was supposed to be humanity's ally but was acting like the Prometheus was an enemy. Captain Vasquez, Sarah said desperately. The Council is getting nervous. Can you explain what happened to you? We'll explain everything, Commander. But first, we need to make something clear to our alien friends. On the sensor screen, Sarah watched something impossible happen. The Prometheus, without any visible movement or energy discharge, simply appeared in a different location. One moment, it was 1,000,000 kilometers away. The next moment, it was right next to the lead Council ship. The Council fleet immediately powered up their weapons. Sarah could see the energy readings spiking on her screens. All ships, this is Admiral Kethmore. Prepare for possible hostile action. But, Captain Vasquez's voice came through calm and peaceful. Admiral, we mean no harm. We just wanted to talk face to face. May we come aboard your ship? That is impossible, Admiral Kethmore replied. Our life support systems are not compatible with human biology. That won't be a problem, Captain Vasquez said. Sarah watched her screens in shock as a human figure appeared on the bridge of the alien ship. According to the sensors, Captain Vasquez was now standing in an environment that should have killed her instantly. No spacesuit, no breathing equipment, but somehow perfectly fine. The universe had become a much stranger place, and somehow Sarah had the feeling that this was just the beginning. Admiral Kethmore stared at the human woman standing on his bridge. This was impossible. Humans needed oxygen to breathe. They needed pressure suits to survive in space. They needed environmental protection to live in alien atmospheres. But Captain Elena Vasquez stood there breathing the methane-rich air of his ship like it was nothing. How are you doing this? Admiral Kethmore asked. His crystalline body was changing colors rapidly, a sign of deep confusion among his people. Captain Vasquez smiled. She looked exactly like she did in the old records from 47 years ago. No older, no different, except for her eyes. Her eyes looked like they had seen things that changed everything. We learned a lot during our time away, Admiral, she said. We discovered that the universe works very differently than any of us thought. Around the bridge, the alien crew members were backing away from the human. Their sensors showed nothing when they tried to scan her. It was like she wasn't really there, even though they could see her and hear her voice. Where did you go? Admiral Kethmore demanded. Our records show your ship vanished near the Veil Nebula. What happened there? Captain Vasquez walked to one of the viewing windows. Outside, they could see Earth in the distance, blue and beautiful. But they could also see the other Council ships surrounding the Prometheus. "We found something the Galactic Council has never encountered," she said. "We found the architects." Admiral Kethmore's colors shifted to deep purple, the color of fear among his people. "The architects are a myth, a story told by ancient races about beings who could change reality itself." "They're not a myth," Captain Vasquez replied calmly. "They're sleeping, but they're very real, and they've been waiting for the right species to wake them up." "Impossible," said the ship's science officer, a being that looked like a walking tree. "No race in the galaxy has ever found evidence of the architects." Captain Vasquez turned to look at the science officer. "That's because they weren't looking for the right kind of species. The architects weren't interested in the most advanced races. They were looking for something else." She walked back to Admiral Kethmore. As she moved, her footsteps made no sound on the metal floor. The sensors still couldn't detect her presence. "They were looking for chaos," she continued. "Creative chaos. The ability to think outside the rules that govern reality. Most species, when they become advanced, become predictable. They follow patterns. They create order." "Order is civilization," Admiral Kethmore said stiffly. "Order is progress. Order is stagnation," Captain Vasquez replied. "The architects showed us that. They showed us what happens when a galaxy becomes too ordered, too predictable, too safe." She moved to the center of the bridge. The alien crew watched her with growing fear. "They taught us about something called foundational engineering. The ability to change the basic rules that reality follows. Not just building better technology, but making new kinds of physics." The science officer's leaves rustled with disbelief. "That's impossible. The laws of physics are absolute." Captain Vasquez smiled again. "Are they?" She held out her hand. In her palm, a small star appeared. Not a light, not a hologram, but an actual star. Tiny, but burning with real nuclear fire. The bridge temperature rose slightly from its heat. "This star will burn for exactly 1 hour," she said. "Then it will become a flower. After that, it will turn into pure music. Then it will return to being normal matter." She closed her hand, and the star disappeared. The bridge was completely silent. Every alien on the ship was staring at the human woman who had just violated every law of physics they knew. "The Galactic Council has ruled this galaxy for thousands of years," Captain Vasquez continued. "You've brought peace and order to hundreds of worlds. That's a wonderful thing. But you've also made the galaxy predictable, safe, boring." Admiral Kethmore's colors were now flashing between purple and red, fear and anger. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that the universe is much bigger and much stranger than this galaxy, and something is coming that will require more than advanced technology to fight. It will require the ability to change reality itself." She walked to the communication console. "May I?" Without waiting for permission, she touched the console. Immediately, her voice was broadcast to every ship in the Council fleet. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the UES Prometheus. I'm speaking to all Council ships. We need to talk." "Get away from that console," Admiral Kethmore ordered. But Captain Vasquez wasn't touching anything anymore. She was standing in the middle of the bridge, but her voice was still coming from every speaker on every ship. "The architects chose humanity for a reason," her voice continued. "Not because we're the smartest or the strongest, because we're chaotic. Because we don't accept that something can't be done, just because it's never been done before." Admiral Kethmore activated his personal communicator. "All ships, prepare to contain the human vessel. Use maximum security protocols." Captain Vasquez shook her head sadly. "Admiral, that's exactly the kind of thinking that the architects warned us about. When faced with something new, something unknown, your first response is to control it." She turned to face him directly. But what if it can't be controlled? What if the only way to deal with something is to become something new yourself? The Admiral was about to give orders to his fleet when something strange happened. Every ship's computer system displayed the same message at the same time. Analyzing containment protocols. Protocols found to be inadequate. Please stand by. What's happening? Admiral Kethamore demanded of his crew. Sir, our computers are running programs. We didn't install, reported the communications officer. But they're not viruses. They're improvements. Captain Vasquez nodded. The Prometheus has been sharing some basic information with your ships. Nothing harmful. Just enough to show you that there are better ways to do things you've been doing for centuries. She moved toward the exit of the bridge. Admiral, the Galactic Council is going to have to make a choice. You can try to fight this change or you can try to understand it, but either way, change is coming. Where are you going? Admiral Kethamore called after her. Back to my ship. We have work to do. The thing that's coming won't wait for the galaxy. To be ready. What thing? Admiral Kethamore demanded. What's coming? Captain Vasquez paused at the doorway. When she turned back, her face was serious. The reason the architects went to sleep, Admiral. The reason they've been waiting for someone like humanity to wake them up. Something that eats realities for breakfast is heading this way. And conventional weapons won't even slow it down. She stepped through the doorway and vanished. Not walked. Away, not transported. Simply stopped existing on the ship. But her voice echoed one more time through every speaker in the fleet. You have a choice, Admiral. Learn to think like humans, or watch the galaxy become food for something that makes your worst nightmares look like children's stories. Admiral. Kethamore stood alone on his bridge, surrounded by his confused and frightened crew. For the first time in his long life, he felt truly helpless. The humans had been the youngest, weakest members of the Galactic Council. Now they might be the only thing standing between the galaxy and something unimaginable. He looked out at the small blue world that had produced these impossible humans. Everything was about to change, and he wasn't sure the galaxy was ready for it. Admiral Kethamore paced his bridge, his crystalline body shifting from red to dark purple. 3 hours had passed since the human captain had vanished from his ship. 3 hours of emergency conferences with the council leadership. 3 hours of growing fear and anger. Sir, his communications officer reported, we have received orders from the High Council. We are to establish a containment field around Earth and the human ship. Nothing gets in or out until the Council science teams can study this new technology. Admiral Kethamore nodded grimly. The Galactic Council had used this method before. When a species developed something potentially dangerous, they isolated them until the Council could understand and control the new technology. It had always worked. Before. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Begin Containment Protocol 77 Alpha, full isolation of the Earth system. Across the solar system, 12 massive Council ships moved into position. Each ship was over 5 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. They had done this hundreds of times before with other species. It was routine. The ships began powering up their containment field generators. These devices could create an energy barrier that would stop any ship from entering or leaving a star system. The technology was thousands of years old and had never failed. Containment field at 20% power, reported the tactical officer. Admiral. Kethamore watched the energy readings rise on his displays. Soon the humans would be trapped in their own solar system until the Council decided what to do with them. 40% power, 60%, 80%. Sir, we're getting a transmission from the human ship, the communications officer announced. Put it through, Admiral Kethamore ordered. Captain Vasquez's voice filled the bridge. She sounded disappointed, like a teacher whose students had failed an important test. Admiral, this is really not the response we were hoping for. Captain Vasquez, you have demonstrated technologies that pose a threat to galactic security. The Council must study these developments to ensure they are not used harmfully. There was a pause. Then Captain Vasquez sighed. "Admiral, we tried to explain this peacefully. The universe is changing whether you want it to or not. You can either change with it, or you can be left behind. Your threats do not concern us, Captain. Our containment field is nearly at full power. Your ship will remain here until the Council decides otherwise." 100% containment field power achieved, the tactical officer reported. The Earth system is now completely isolated. Admiral Kethmore felt satisfied. The humans were contained. Now the Council science teams could take as long as they needed to understand what had happened to the Prometheus and how to control or copy their new abilities. "Captain Vasquez, your system is now under Council protection. Please prepare to receive our science teams for detailed examination of your vessel." But Captain Vasquez's voice didn't sound worried at all. "Admiral, do you remember what I told you about foundational engineering? About changing the basic rules of reality?" Before Admiral Kethmore could respond, something impossible happened. Every Council ship in the fleet was suddenly somewhere else. Not moved, not transported, not shifted through space. Simply somewhere else, as if they had always been there. Admiral Kethmore looked at his navigation displays in shock. According to his instruments, his ship was now exactly 1 light-year away from Earth. Every other ship in his fleet was in the same position, 1 light-year from Earth, in perfect formation, as if they had traveled there instantly. "How?" whispered his science officer, her tree-like branches shaking. "How did they move 12 ships across interstellar space without any detectable energy signature?" "Sir," the communications officer reported, his voice cracking, "I'm still receiving the human transmission. The signal is coming across 1 light-year of space with no delay." Captain Vasquez's voice continued as if nothing had happened. "We didn't move you to hurt you, Admiral. Every ship in your fleet is undamaged. Every crew member is perfectly safe. We moved you to make a point." Admiral Kethmore sank into his command chair. 1 light-year. They had been moved 1 light-year in an instant. The energy required for such a feat was beyond calculation. The precision needed was impossible. No species in the galaxy had technology even close to this level. "The point," Captain Vasquez continued, "is that containment fields and military force won't work on us anymore. We're not the same humans who left Earth 47 years ago. We've learned to think in ways that make your advanced technology look like stone tools." "What do you want?" Admiral Kethmore asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "We want to save the galaxy, Admiral. All of it. Every species, every world, every life. But we can't do it alone." The Admiral's tactical displays showed something new. Back in the Earth system, the Prometheus was broadcasting on all frequencies. The transmission was reaching every inhabited world in the galaxy simultaneously, despite the fact that it should take years for radio signals to cross such distances. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the UES Prometheus, broadcasting to all members of the Galactic Council. What you just witnessed was a small demonstration of humanity's new capabilities. We did not harm your ships or crews. We moved them to show you that the old rules no longer apply." Admiral Kethmore listened as the human. Captain addressed the entire galaxy. "The technologies we have gained are not weapons. They are tools for survival. Something is coming that will threaten every living thing in this galaxy. The architects warned us about it before they went to sleep." She paused, and when she continued, her voice was heavy with responsibility. "The enemy that destroyed the architects. Original civilization is still out there. It consumes realities. It eats the very fabric of space and time. It turns entire galaxies into nothing more than forgotten dreams." Admiral Kethmore felt his internal temperature drop. The architects had been the most advanced civilization ever recorded in galactic history. If something had destroyed them... "The architects went to sleep to hide from this enemy," Captain Vasquez continued. "They waited for a species that could think differently. a species that could break rules instead of just following them. They chose humanity not because we were the most advanced, but because we were the most chaotic. Back on Earth, the Prometheus began sharing information with human scientists and engineers. Not the advanced technologies, but basic concepts. How to think about reality as something that could be changed rather than something that was fixed. "Admiral," Captain Vasquez said, addressing him directly again, "your fleet is welcome to return to Earth. We bear you no ill will, but understand that we will not be contained, controlled, or threatened. The galaxy's survival depends on cooperation, not domination." Admiral Kethmore looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him, waiting for orders. But what orders? Could he give? How do you fight an enemy that can move your ships across interstellar space without any warning or effort? "All ships," he said slowly, "stand down from combat status. Request permission to return to Earth system." "Permission granted, Admiral," Captain Vasquez replied immediately. "But please, approach as friends. We have too much work to do to waste time on conflicts." As the Council fleet began the journey back to Earth, Admiral Kethmore wondered what other impossibilities the humans would demonstrate. More importantly, he wondered what kind of enemy could destroy beings powerful enough to teach humans such abilities. "Sir," his science officer asked quietly, "what are we going to tell the High Council?" Admiral Kethmore looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, something was coming that made the humans' reality-changing powers seem necessary rather than threatening. "We're going to tell them the truth," he said, "that the galaxy just became a much more dangerous place, and that we're going to need all the help we can get." The universe had rules, but apparently some species had learned to rewrite them. Admiral Kethmore just hoped they had learned fast enough. Dr. Sarah Martinez pressed her hand against the cool metal wall of the Prometheus and felt the ship hum with impossible energy. 3 weeks had passed since the Council fleet returned to Earth, and every day brought new revelations that challenged everything humanity thought they knew about the universe. "Tell me again about the architects," she said to Captain Vasquez as they walked through the ship's corridors. Captain Vasquez smiled tiredly. "Which part? There's so much to explain." "Start with how you found them," Dr. Martinez suggested. She was Earth's leading physicist, but the technologies she was seeing made her feel like a child learning to count. They entered a room that hadn't existed when the Prometheus left Earth 47 years ago. The walls showed images of space, but not normal space. This was reality itself, the underlying structure that held the universe together. "We didn't find them," Captain Vasquez explained. "They found us. When we investigated those strange readings, near the Veil Nebula, our ship was pulled into what we thought was a black hole." She touched the wall, and the images changed. Now they showed a place that didn't follow any natural laws. Mountains floated in empty space, water flowed upward, stars burned with cold fire. But it wasn't a black hole. It was a pocket of reality that the architects had created. A place where the normal rules didn't apply. Dr. Martinez stared at the images. "How long were you there?" 6 months, from our perspective. But time works differently in architect space. We could have been there for minutes or centuries in normal time. The images shifted again, showing beings that looked like pure thought given form. They moved through space like living equations, changing the reality around them with every step. "They were dying," Captain Vasquez continued, her voice sad. "Not dying like biological creatures die, but fading, becoming less real. They had been fighting something for so long that they were almost out of existence." "What were they fighting, Captain?" Vasquez was quiet for a moment. "They called them the Devourers, beings from a reality where entropy won, where the universe already died and everything became nothing." She showed Dr. Martinez new images. These were darker, harder to look at. Shapes that hurt to see directly, spaces where nothing could exist. The devourers consume reality itself, not just matter and energy, but possibility. When they eat a planet, it doesn't just die. It never existed. The universe forgets it was ever there. Dr. Martinez felt cold despite the warm air in the room. And the architects couldn't stop them? The architects were the most advanced civilization that ever existed in our reality. They could reshape matter with thought, travel between dimensions, create entire universes. But they thought in patterns. They followed rules, even if those rules were far beyond what other species understood. Captain Vasquez touched the wall again, and the images showed a massive battle. Reality itself was being torn apart as two incompatible forms of existence fought for dominance. The devourers don't follow rules. They're chaos, but not creative chaos. They're destructive chaos, pure entropy given consciousness and hunger. So the architects lost? No. They won, but barely. And they realized that next time, the devourers would be stronger. So they made a plan. The images changed to show the architects retreating to hidden spaces between realities. They were building something massive and complex. They went to sleep and waited. They knew that eventually a species would evolve that could think the way they needed, a species that could break rules without destroying everything. And they chose humanity. Captain Vasquez nodded. Not because we were the smartest or the strongest. Because we're chaotic in the right way. When humans encounter a problem, we don't just try to solve it within existing rules, we change the rules. Dr. Martinez thought about human history. All the times her species had done the impossible because no one had told them it was impossible. What did they teach you? Foundational engineering. The ability to modify the basic structure of reality. But they were very careful about it. They didn't just give us power, they gave us understanding. Captain Vasquez led her to another room. This one contained what looked like a garden, but the plants were made of pure mathematics, and they grew in the shape of physical laws. Every human on the Prometheus learned to think in new ways. We learned that reality is more like a story than a machine. And stories can be rewritten. That's how you moved the council ships. That was simple, Captain Vasquez said with a slight smile. We just edited the story to say they were somewhere else. Reality agreed with the new version. Dr. Martinez sat down on a bench that was somehow more comfortable than any furniture should be. Why are you sharing this with Earth? Why not keep these abilities on your ship? Captain Vasquez's expression became serious. Because the devourers are coming back. The architect's final sensor readings detected them at the edge of our galaxy. They've grown stronger by consuming other realities. She showed Dr. Martinez one last image. It was Earth's solar system, but wrong somehow. The sun was the right color, but it cast shadows that fell upward. The planets were in the correct orbits, but they left trails of emptiness behind them. This is what space looks like where the devourers have been feeding. Reality becomes unstable. The laws of physics start to contradict themselves. When will they arrive? We estimate 18 months, maybe less. Dr. Martinez felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. What can Earth do? How can we help? We're teaching human scientists the basics of foundational engineering, but it's not enough. The devourers have consumed dozens of realities. They've learned to adapt to any single approach. Captain Vasquez stood up and walked to a window that showed Earth in the distance. The planet looked the same as always, but Dr. Martinez knew that wasn't true anymore. Nothing was the same. We need the Galactic Council's help, Captain Vasquez continued. Not their technology. That won't work against the devourers. We need their knowledge. Every species thinks differently. Every culture sees reality from a unique perspective. And you think that will be enough? The architects left us one final gift, Captain Vasquez said quietly. A way to transform consciousness itself. To turn every thinking being in the galaxy into something that can fight for reality's existence. Dr. Martinez stared at her. Transform how? That's what we're still figuring out. The architect's final message was clear but complex. They said that salvation would come not from any single species, but from the galaxy learning to think as one mind while remaining many perspectives. Outside the window, Dr. Martinez could see ships from dozens of different species orbiting Earth. The Galactic Council was finally beginning to understand that their old ways of thinking wouldn't be enough. The transformation has to be voluntary, Captain Vasquez explained. Forced change would turn us into something as rigid as the Devourers are chaotic. Every species, every individual has to choose to become more than they were. And if some refuse? Captain Vasquez was quiet for a long moment. Then we save who we can and hope it's enough. Dr. Martinez looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere in that darkness, something was coming that could erase everything she had ever known or loved. But she also knew that humanity had never backed down from an impossible challenge. "When do we start?" she asked. Captain Vasquez smiled, and for the first time since the Prometheus returned, she looked hopeful. "We already have." The first reality crack appeared at the edge of the galaxy on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. Admiral Kethmore was in a meeting with human scientists when every sensor in the galaxy screamed at once. "What is that?" Dr. Martinez asked, staring at the impossible readings on her display. Admiral Kethmore's crystalline body turned deep black, the color of absolute terror among his people. "Space is breaking," he whispered. On the main screen, they watched as a section of empty space simply stopped existing. Not exploded, not collapsed, but ceased to be real. Where there had been vacuum and distant stars, now there was something that hurt to look at directly. "The Devourers," Captain Vasquez said quietly from across the room. She had been working with the Council science teams for months, preparing for this moment. But seeing it happen was different from knowing it would happen. "How long do we have?" Admiral Kethmore asked. Captain Vasquez consulted a display that showed information in mathematical forms that shouldn't exist. "At their current rate of approach, 6 weeks until they reach inhabited systems. 3 months until they reach Earth." The room fell silent. 6 weeks to save the galaxy. 3 months to save humanity's home. "The Council fleet?" Dr. Martinez asked. "Already moving to intercept," Admiral Kethmore replied. 10,000 ships representing every species in the galaxy. Our most advanced weapons, our best crews." Captain Vasquez shook her head sadly. "Admiral, you know that won't work. Conventional weapons can't hurt something that exists outside normal reality." They watched on long-range sensors as the massive Council fleet engaged the first wave of Devourers. The alien ships fired weapons that could destroy planets, launched missiles that could crack moons, deployed energy fields that could stop supernovas. Nothing happened. The Devourers moved through the attacks like they were gentle rain. Then they began to feed. "The ships aren't being destroyed," Dr. Martinez observed, studying the sensor data. "No," Captain Vasquez confirmed. "They're being unmade. Watch." On the screen, they saw a massive HFY battleship simply fade away. Not exploded, not vaporized, but edited out of existence. One moment it was there, firing its weapons and transmitting messages. The next moment it had never existed. The universe forgot it had ever been built. "The crew?" Admiral Kethmore asked desperately. "They never lived," Captain Vasquez said gently. "When the Devourers consume something, they consume its entire timeline. Past, present, and future all become nothing." Admiral Kethmore slumped in his chair. His people's greatest warship, with 5,000 crew members, had just been erased from history. And there was nothing his technology could do to stop it. "The reality anchors," Dr. Martinez said suddenly. "The devices the Prometheus crew has been installing around Earth. Are they working?" Captain Vasquez nodded. "They're stabilizing local space-time, maintaining consistent physical laws, but it's like using an umbrella in a hurricane. They'll help, but they won't be enough." More reports came in from across the galaxy. Entire star systems were vanishing. Planets that had existed for billions of years were becoming empty space. Civilizations that had built wonders were being forgotten completely. "The transformation protocol," Admiral Kethmore said suddenly. "The architect's final gift. When do we implement it?" "Now," Captain Vasquez said. She activated a communication system that reached every inhabited world in the galaxy simultaneously. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the UES Prometheus. The enemy is here. The time for half measures is over." Her voice echoed in the halls of the Galactic Council on a dozen different worlds. It reached mining colonies on the Outer Rim and scientific stations in the galactic core. It spoke to every conscious being in known space. "The architects left us a way to fight, but it requires every species, every individual, to choose to become something more than they have ever been. The process is voluntary, but it is permanent. You will still be yourselves, but you will also be part of something larger." Across the galaxy, leaders made the hardest decision any civilization had ever faced: transform into something unknown, or watch reality itself be consumed. The first to volunteer were the humans. Dr. Martinez felt the change begin as soon as she agreed to it. Her consciousness expanded, but not in the way she expected. She was still herself, still Sarah Martinez, but she could also feel the thoughts and experiences of every other human who had chosen the transformation. "It's beautiful," she whispered, as her mind touched billions of other human minds. Each person remained individual, but they were also connected in ways that made them stronger together. Admiral Kethmore was next. His crystalline body began to resonate with frequencies that had never existed before as his consciousness joined with others of his species, then the tree-like beings, then the gas cloud entities, then species after species across the galaxy. But the transformation was more than just mental connection. As each species joined the network, reality itself began to stabilize around them. The chaos of the Devourers met the organized chaos of a billion minds thinking in harmony while maintaining their diversity. "It's working," Captain Vasquez reported. "The reality cracks are slowing down." On the sensors, they could see the Devourers' advance faltering. For the first time in eons, they were encountering resistance that adapted faster than they could consume it. The transformed consciousness of the galaxy began to fight back, not with weapons or energy beams, but by rewriting the rules of engagement. Where the Devourers brought entropy and forgetting, the galaxy brought creation and memory. Where the Devourers erased possibilities, the galaxy created new ones. "They're retreating," Dr. Martinez observed, her enhanced senses tracking the enemy across impossible distances. But Captain Vasquez looked worried. "No, they're regrouping. They're learning from this encounter, just like they learned from fighting." The architects. She was right. The Devourers pulled back to the edge of the galaxy and began to change. They were adapting to the new form of resistance, becoming something that could counter organized chaos with pure destruction. "Then we adapt too," Admiral Kethmore said. His voice now carried harmonics from 1,000 different species. "The architects couldn't do this because they were one species thinking in one way. We are many species thinking in many ways." The transformed galaxy began its own evolution. Human creativity merged with Zeph-High logic. Tree-being patience combined. With gas cloud intuition, every species contributed their unique perspective to a growing understanding of reality itself. When the Devourers attacked again, they found not one enemy, but billions, all thinking differently, but acting together. Every time the Devourers adapted to one approach, another species thought of a completely different solution. The battle for reality lasted 3 days, not 3 days of explosions and energy beams, but 3 days of competing ideas about what existence should be. The Devourers brought nothingness. The galaxy brought infinite possibility. In the end, the Devourers retreated again. But this time, they didn't just pull back to the edge of the galaxy. They withdrew to whatever empty reality they had come from and sealed the passage behind them. "Is it over?" Dr. Martinez asked. Captain Vasquez, now connected to every enhanced consciousness in the galaxy, smiled. "This time, yes. But the universe is vast, and there are other threats we haven't imagined yet." She looked out at Earth, where children were being born with minds that could touch the stars and reshape reality with a thought. The transformation was permanent, but it was also just the beginning. The architects wanted us to become guardians of reality itself, she said. Now we are, all of us, together. Admiral Kethamore's colors had settled into a pattern that had never existed among his people before, a swirling mix that represented unity in diversity. "What comes next?" "We explore," Dr. Martinez said, her consciousness already reaching toward distant galaxies. "We learn. We protect other realities from threats like the Devourers. And we remain human," Captain Vasquez added. "All of us, no matter what species we started as. Because the greatest strength we found wasn't in our individual abilities, but in our refusal to give up our uniqueness, even when we became part of something larger." The galaxy had survived. Not by becoming something else, but by becoming more of what it already was. The universe had gardeners now, tending to the growth of reality itself, and somewhere on Earth, a child was learning to make flowers bloom in the vacuum of space, just because flowers were beautiful and space was lonely.